When Arsenal signed Declan Rice for over £100 million, they didn't just buy a midfielder. They bought hope, expectation, and the weight of a club's title dreams. 2 years later, Rice is still carrying that burden, and it's proving to be far heavier than anyone initially realized. This is the untold story of how a record transfer fee has shaped one of modern football's most resilient players. The record that changed everything. Declan Rice arrived at Arsenal in July 2023 as the club's most expensive signing ever. The fee, £105 million including add-ons, made him the joint most expensive English player in football history. For context, Arsenal had never spent more than £72 million on a single player before. The previous record signing, Nicholas Pepe, came for just £72 million in 2019 and never truly lived up to expectations. Suddenly, with Rice's arrival, the entire club's financial strategy was placed on his shoulders. Fans believed a title was inevitable. Critics questioned if any midfielder was worth such a sum. Financial analysts debated whether Arsenal had overpaid for potential. Rice himself felt the pressure immediately. He spoke openly about needing to prove himself right away, about the mental challenge of carrying such a hefty price tag. Yet he stepped in and delivered, becoming one of Arsenal's standout performers in his first season. He contributed 7 goals and 8 assists in the league, while establishing himself as one of the club's most important players. Still, the expectations had been set impossibly high. The invisible weight of expectations. What people don't often discuss is how the transfer fee doesn't just fade away after a player signs. It becomes embedded in every criticism, every missed chance, every match where the team struggles. When Arsenal fell short in the title race during his first 2 seasons, Rice faced intense scrutiny. Some fans and pundits suggested that despite his excellent performances, he hadn't justified the massive investment. That's the curse of expensive transfers. No matter how well you play, you're always being compared to that number. You're always wondering if you've done enough, if you've moved the needle enough, if you've changed the team enough to justify such a premium price. Rice experienced Euro 2024 as a further complication. Playing every single minute for England in their run to the final left him mentally and physically drained. He admitted the defeat deeply affected his form at the start of the 2024 season. He wasn't just dealing with a tournament hangover like other players. He was dealing with a tournament hangover while carrying the weight of a club record fee. The pressure to bounce back immediately was immense, and the scrutiny on his performances that season was heightened because of what had been paid for him. Leadership beyond contribution. What truly reveals how big Rice's pressure is at Arsenal involves his leadership role. As the most expensive signing and one of the squad's most consistent performers, he has become the de facto captain in midfield. He carries responsibility not just for his own performances but for maintaining team morale and standards during difficult periods. When Arsenal's form dipped in recent weeks, it was Rice who stepped forward, calling for focus and resilience from his teammates. He emphasized that slipping in the title race would fall below the standards the squad had established. This leadership position is something nobody explicitly asked him to take on, but it falls naturally to someone in his position. The mental load of being a record signing is compounded when you're also pushing your teammates to maintain elite standards. Rice has spent nearly 2 years being not just a player, but a symbol. He represents Arsenal's ambition, their belief they can finally win a Premier League title after 2 decades without one. That symbolic weight is something many players at smaller price tags never have to carry. The evolving tactical burden. Arsenal's approach to using Rice has also added layers to his pressure. When he arrived, he was signed primarily as a holding midfielder, a defensive shield to provide stability. But under manager Mikel Arteta's system, he's gradually evolved into a more attacking player. Recently, with new signings like Martin Zubimendi and Christian Rugard arriving to handle defensive responsibilities, Rice has been given license to push forward more aggressively. This evolution is positive for his attacking output, and he responded brilliantly, scoring crucial goals including 2 spectacular free kicks against Real Madrid in the Champions League. He became the first player ever to score 2 free kicks in a single Champions League knockout phase match. But this shift also means he's now expected to contribute more in attack while maintaining his defensive standards. The pressure multiplies. He needs to be progressive going forward, crisp in possession, relentless in his work rate, and still cover for teammates defensively. Every performance is analyzed in microscopic detail because of what Arsenal paid for him. He's expected to do more, achieve more, and ultimately change the trajectory of the entire club. Recent contract politics and its impact. Another layer of pressure emerged recently when Arsenal secured a massive new contract for Bukayo Saka, making him the club's highest-paid player on over £300,000 a week. While this was a positive move for the club and a deserved recognition of Saka's importance, it created an awkward situation for Rice. Here was their record signing, their leader, their most consistent performer throughout multiple seasons, suddenly finding out he wasn't the club's highest earner. Some prominent pundits suggested he should feel disrespected, that being paid less than another player contradicted the club's expressed belief in his value. Whether Rice himself felt that way publicly, the narrative added another psychological element to his burden. He had to navigate questions about wages, recognition, and whether Arsenal truly valued him at his current worth. This is the modern football reality, where transfer fees and wages intersect with player morale in complicated ways. For Rice, it meant facing new questions about his future at a club where he'd already invested so much emotionally and contributed so much on the pitch. The human element of pressure, what makes Rice's situation particularly interesting, is how he's handled it all with grace and professionalism. Unlike some expensive signings who've crumbled under the weight of expectation, Rice has remained grounded and productive. He's played consistently, made himself available for his team through injury concerns and fatigue, and continues to perform at an elite level. Yet this resilience shouldn't hide the truth. The pressure he's under is genuinely bigger than most observers realize. It's not just about matching a number. It's about being the catalyst for a club ending a 20-year title drought. It's about being a symbol of ambition in a city that remembers Arsenal's dominance fondly, but desperately expects it to return. Rice carries that historical weight alongside his personal one. He's spoken about how he's had to work mentally to handle expectations, drawing comparisons to Jack Grealish, who also struggled initially with the psychological weight of being a £100 million player. Rice learned from that example and pushed through, refusing to let the pressure paralyze him. The comparison game and constant scrutiny. Rice has not been able to escape one relentless comparison since the moment he arrived at Arsenal. Every major signing has a comparable figure used to measure their success. Jack Grealish remains the go-to example. Manchester City spent £100 million on Grealish around the same time Rice joined Arsenal, and Grealish's initial struggles were heavily publicised. Rice has studied that situation carefully, learning what to do and what not to do. He's refused to let outside expectations dictate his mentality. However, the comparison game doesn't end with Grealish. Enzo Fernandez at Chelsea for £106 million is another obvious comparison. Every time another expensive midfielder struggles, it indirectly affects Rice's narrative, creating an additional psychological element beyond his own performances. The path forward. Looking ahead, Rice faces continued pressure regardless of what happens. If Arsenal finally wins the title, he'll be lauded as a crucial catalyst, and the fee will be justified entirely. If they continue to fall short, questions will persist about whether such an expensive player should have made more of a difference or lifted the team across the line. This is the nature of record transfers in modern football. The pressure never truly diminishes, it just finds new forms and new angles. Rice is now not just a midfielder, he's the embodiment of Arsenal's ambitions, their commitment to changing their fortunes, and the club's willingness to spend big to achieve their goals. That's enormous pressure that goes far beyond what most of his peers experience on a daily basis. His ability to compartmentalize all of this while still delivering strong performances is actually quite remarkable. It's a reminder that success at the highest level requires not just technical ability and physical attributes, but mental strength that often goes completely unnoticed by casual observers. For Declan Rice at Arsenal, the pressure isn't just about the fee anymore. It's about legacy, responsibility, and whether one player can truly be the missing piece that ends a dynasty's drought. And that's a burden far heavier than £105 million.